All right, getting right into it. The gray wolf's return, living and recreating in wolf country. And it's presented by Alex Strasser and Hannah Grimes, your local Summit County wildlife officers. Okay, so this presentation is to discuss wolf biology and behavior as it relates to staying safe and living and recreating in wolf country. Our goal here today is to empower you with the information and tools you need to understand how to best minimize problems with wolves and other wildlife, as most potential problems are preventable. And since you most likely live in bear and lion country, as we do here in Summit County, if you already follow those similar precautions, you are doing exactly what you need to do. So before we start, let's talk about a little bit about Colorado Parks and Wildlife, what we do and why. Colorado Parks and Wildlife is a state agency responsible for managing close to 1 million acres of land with over 40 state parks and 346 state wildlife areas, and oversees the management of 960 native wildlife species, which includes the hunting and fishing regulations of some of these species. Colorado Parks and Wildlife employs a variety of people to help care for your state lands and wildlife. Just a few are represented here on this slide. Colorado Parks and Wildlife is primarily funded through hunting and fishing licenses, the sale of park passes, camping fees, excise taxes on fishing and hunting equipment, and the lottery via Great Outdoors Colorado. We are typically not funded by state taxes, meaning we are largely a user-funded agency. So I'd like to recognize any supporters in the room. Does anyone in here like to fish? Okay, what about hunt? State parks? Any state park travelers? Excellent. Right on, we appreciate all of you guys. So why are we here today? One of the principles of wildlife management states that laws are created through the public process, meaning everyone has the opportunity and responsibility to develop systems of wildlife conservation and use. We saw this in action when, in November 2020, Proposition 114, now state statute 33-105.8, directed the Parks and Wildlife Commission to develop a plan to restore and manage gray wolves in Colorado, and to begin the restoration of gray wolves in Colorado west of the Continental Divide no later than December 31st of 2023. So what does this mean for the future of living and recreating areas that will become wolf country? Now, while the science of restoring wolves back to Colorado is less complicated, it is the social factors, such as listening to and balancing the different perspectives, experiences, and values around wolves, that can make these efforts more challenging. There's also a lot we don't know and will not know until wolves are reestablished on Colorado's landscape. Much of what we will talk today is based on what we understood about wolves in other states, such as Alaska, Oregon, Montana, Idaho, just to name a few. And our goal today is to discuss how to minimize potential conflicts as we live and recreate in what is now and what will be wolf country. Thanks. So the plan for today is to learn more about wolf biology and behavior as it relates to our potential interactions with them. Most importantly, we'll discuss how to prevent problems when living and recreating in wolf country. We'll cover understanding more about wolf biology and behaviors, how to stay safe when recreating outdoors in wolf country, tips and tools to help you prevent potential negative encounters with wolves, and what you can do to help people and wolves coexist. Ultimately, we're here to discuss how this community can work together collectively and collaboratively to help protect people, pets, and wildlife. We'll focus on what we can control, which is our individual and shared actions and behaviors to live responsibly with wildlife. So, what do we know about wolves? Understanding more about wildlife, their biology and behaviors can help us understand more about how we can minimize potential problems between people and wild animals. When it comes to wolves, if we follow what we already know about living and recreating with bears, lions, and coyotes, then we're already on the right track. So let's discuss some of what we know about wolves to see where we have accurate understanding and where you might learn a few new things. So we have two pictures here, gray wolf and a coyote. You see a couple major differences. Folks, see anything else that's striking out and is pretty obvious here? Long nose, eyes. What about the shape of the snout? Different there as well. So like many animals with colors in the name, gray wolves can actually be found in a variety of colors, not just gray. They may be white, tawny, gray, or black, or any combination of those colors. Though seeing white wolves in Colorado is not likely, you will see examples of the various color phases in photos throughout this presentation. As you can see in those pictures, wolf heads and faces are broader and ears are rounder than the coyote's more narrow face and tail, along with its pointed ears. Also, wolves have much longer legs and a distinctively bushier tail that is also shorter than coyotes. So, how to spot a wolf? These images might be a bit more useful to compare the vast size difference between our wild dogs, the red fox, the coyote, and gray wolf. Adult male gray wolves typically weigh between 90 and 110 pounds and may exceed 5 feet in length from nose to tail tip. Adult females typically weigh between 80 and 90 pounds and can be 5 feet long. For another comparison, you can see a mountain lion on the top left there. A mountain lion is similar in size to a wolf. You're more likely to see signs of wolves than you actually be able to see a wolf. Apparent sightings of wolf tracks often are a case of mistaken identity. Dog and coyote paw prints can be mistaken for wolf tracks. Adult wolf prints are typically larger than dog and coyote prints. An average sized wolf makes a track about 5 inches long without claws and 3 to 4.5 inches wide. Coyotes are considerably smaller and narrower. Keep in mind that tracks found in mud can look larger than the same track on dry ground. Some large breed domestic dog tracks can be confused with wolf tracks. It is recommended to follow the tracks out, if possible, to obtain additional measurements such as distance between imprints, stride length, and so on and so forth. To look for other signs that may be in the area and to identify the general travel path, as wolves tend to travel in a straight line, whereas domestic dogs tend to weave and meander more. It can be very difficult to identify wildlife at times, so looking for other evidence and clues are considering other factors such as your location, the season, etc. can help you be more sure of your sightings or findings. Gray wolves are one of the most wide-ranging land mammals, historically inhabiting most of the contiguous United States, including Colorado. Wolves are extirpated, meaning they are locally extinct, but still exist in other parts of their range, from the state of Colorado as people moved into the settled throughout the West. The last known resident wolves in Colorado was in the 1940s until the most recent discovery of a wolf pack that migrated into Colorado in the early 2020s. Wolves are habitat generalists and will establish territories anywhere there is a sufficient food source. When setting out to establish new territories, young male wolves disperse an average of 50 to 60 miles from their source pack, and females disperse an average of 40 miles. However, dispersals of more than 500 miles have been reported. Pack boundaries and territory sizes vary from year to year, depending on changes in prey availability, distribution and conflict with nearby wolf packs, or the establishment of a new neighboring pack. Researchers have reported wolf territories ranging in size from 25 square miles to more than 1,000 square miles. So this is our approved reintroduction area in the state. State statute requires that wolves be released only west of the Continental Divide. Scientists found that wolves released in Yellowstone in central Idaho in the mid-1990s moved substantial distances in the months immediately after release. Because of this, releases in Colorado will occur a minimum of 60 miles from the northern border with Wyoming, the western border with Utah, the southern border with New Mexico, as well as a similar buffer as requested by the tribes of sovereign tribal lands in the southwestern part of the state. In the first year, this winter, wolves will be released on state and private lands in Eagle, Summit, or Grand counties. CPW has also concluded that large, contiguous areas of public lands with a high abundance of prey and low livestock densities will be the best sites for reintroduction. CPW plans to release the wolves during the winter months, and we did in December, all the way through March, as cold temperatures create less stress for the reintroduced wolves and fall presents conflicts with hunting season. For those of you living in the release areas, we understand there may be concerns with the new wildlife species on the landscape, and that's why we're all here today. All right, so let's talk a little bit about wolf's diet. All right, so understanding wolf's diet can help us understand more about how we can minimize potential problems between people and animals. So let's dig into this just a little bit. Wolves are opportunistic carnivores whose primary prey are deer, elk, and moose. When these prey are not available, wolves will eat smaller animals such as rabbits, beavers, grouse, ravens, skunks, coyotes, porcupines, and fish. Wolves also may kill and feed upon domestic hobby livestock such as sheep, llamas, goats. Many other animals benefit from wolf kills. For example, when wolves kill an elk, scavengers like ravens and magpies arrive almost immediately. Coyotes arrive soon after, waiting nearby until the wolves are sated. Bears will attempt to chase the wolves away and are sometimes successful. Many other animals, such as eagles to invertebrates, consume their remains. Understanding their pack behavior. Wolves are social animals and usually live in packs that include parents and pups of the year, as well as offspring from previous years. The average pack size is 6 or 7 animals, and pack members often include some yearlings and other adults. Packs of 20 to 30 wolves sometimes occur, when these larger packs may have 2 or 3 litters of pups from more than one female. The social order in the pack is characterized by a separate dominance hierarchy among the females and males. In most areas, wolf packs tend to remain within a territory used almost exclusively by pack members, with only occasional overlap in the ranges of neighboring packs. Packs defend their territory from other invading packs by howling and scent marking with urine. Research in Yellowstone since reintroduction has highlighted the adaptive value of social living with wolves. From cooperative care of offspring, group hunting of large prey, defense of territory and prey carcasses, and even survival benefits to infirmed individuals. Interesting to note, recent studies have determined the term alpha originates from studies of wolf social dynamics in captive wolf packs. In nature, wolf packs are a family unit consisting of a mated pair and their offspring, though occasionally variations to this pack structure exist. The term alpha is no longer needed in this case, and breeder is used instead. Understanding wolf behaviors, reproduction. Female wolves begin to bear young when they are about 2 years old. Breeding usually occurs only between the dominant male and female in a pack, with the breeding season peaking in mid to late February. Pregnancies last for 2 months and usually result in a litter of 3 to 5 young called pups. All the adults in a pack share in the raising of pups. From late April until September, pack activity is centered near the den or at one or more rendezvous sites as the adult wolves hunt and return with food for the pups. Rendezvous sites typically are located in meadows or forest openings near the den, but can be several miles away. Adults carry small pups between the rendezvous sites where the pups stay until they are able to travel and hunt with the pack, which usually occurs in September. Now, this information is important to note because these seasons are vulnerable times for wildlife, where they may be more aggressive and protective, so possibilities for conflict between wild animals and humans and pets could increase during these times. So be extra cautious in wildlife country at these times. Communication with wolves. Again, wolves are highly social animals. Let me play that.
It'll play next.
The howls of wolves tend to be long and drawn out as compared with shorter yapping sounds made by coyotes. Wolf vocalizations can also include growls and barks. Wolf howls can be heard from as far as 5 miles away. Biologists do not know all of the reasons why wolves howl, but they may do so before and after a hunt, to sound an alarm and to locate other members of the pack when separated. Wolves howl more frequently in the evening and early morning, especially during winter breeding and pup rearing. Howling is also one way that packs warn other wolves to stay out of their territory. Howls are not necessarily a sign of aggression. However, if you hear a wolf howling nearby, the best thing to do is leave the area.
All right, so next we're going to talk about preventing problems in your community. So now we know more about wolves and their behaviors, let's discuss ways that we can help minimize potential issues around our homes and in our community. To understand why wildlife live close to people, you must understand that all animals need food, water, shelter, and appropriate space to survive. While wolves are mostly afraid of and will avoid humans, if they feel comfortable, become habituated to people, they can be potentially dangerous. Think like a wolf. Think not only what might attract wolves, but their prey as well. Remember, home is where the habitat is, and if you're providing the components of habitat, you are providing habitat for wildlife. For food, feeding pets outdoors leaves food that could attract wolves or other wildlife. Food is an attractant for predators and their prey, whether it's trash, human food, or animal food like bird seed, Keeping everything in secured containers and inaccessible to wildlife is key. Water. We live in Colorado, where access to fresh water for wildlife can be scarce. But if we do a good job of providing it right in our backyards, but we do a good job of providing it. We shouldn't be doing that. So it says bird baths, running fountains or ponds or pools, and pet water dishes outside could all attract wildlife. Awesome. Let's see. Shelter. Open sheds or other accessible structures are a great shelter for wildlife. Yards with lots of shrubs, bushes, and trees for resting, hiding, etc. are also great for wildlife. Space. As human population expands, vast open spaces and natural areas have converted to residential neighborhoods or residential communities, and they have been constructed right up against open space areas where wildlife live. The moral of the story: even landscape neighborhoods are and can be wildlife habitat. You may also want to keep hazing materials handy, like noisemakers, like an air horn, or even a garden hose. Following the same guidelines for living with coyotes, bears, and mountain lions should also help you prevent problems with wolves. You can find lots of great information on our website. So, problems with pets. While attacks on domestic dogs are rare and mostly due to habituated wildlife, it is important to remember that wolves will view your dog as another wolf. As they defend territories from other wolves, they may also do so with your dog. From Alaska, anytime a wolf pack takes residence near a human settlement, dogs may be preyed upon. Therefore, it is important to take best precautions when wolves are known to occupy nearby areas. Some of these precautions are indoor shelter options for animals during hours of darkness, like enclosed dog houses, sheds, or barns, and be sure to feed them inside those shelters. Chain link fences around dog yards, electric fences around dog yards, lights around dog yards, and we suggest motion lights or else wildlife get used to consistent light, and the use of noisemakers. Clearing brush to clear, concealing vegetation around dog yards, always keeping pets leashed, like a 6-foot leash or in visual auditory range, and owners should vocalize frequently, including the use of whistles. Place a bell or a beeping collar on wider ranging dogs, and never let your dog play with a wolf. Again, following the same guidelines for pets when living with coyotes, bears, and mountain lions should also help you prevent problems with wolves. Also keep in mind that it is not legal to shoot at or attempt to injure or kill a wolf, even if a pet is threatened. Gray wolves in Colorado remain a state endangered species. All right, so what could potentially be wrong with this picture? Is there food that could be attracting wolves or other wildlife to this tent? So when hiking or camping in wolf country, be aware of your surroundings. Wolves are not likely to seek out people as prey, but startling wild animals is very risky. Getting too close to any large animal can make them feel threatened. Offering food can make animals less afraid of people and more likely to approach humans and human property, which can lead to aggressive conflicts. If you are in wolf country, chances are you're also in bear and mountain lion habitat, like here in Summit County. To protect people, pets, or to prevent a visit to your campsite, follow the same tips you will find for camping and hiking in bear and lion country. If hiking or camping with your dog in wolf country, use a short leash and keep your dog close at all times. Know before you go. Understand what wildlife may be in the area you like to recreate in, and use extra caution when recreating at dawn and dusk when most wildlife is active. Some other tips to consider in wolf country. Again, following similar guidelines for living with coyotes, bears, and mountain lions should also help you prevent problems with wolves, and you can find all that information on our website. So we want to keep wolf diets wild, so feeding wolves and other wildlife might cause them to lose their fear of people and become potentially dangerous. Keep a safe distance from wolves at least 300 feet or more. Leave room for a wolf to escape. You never want a wild animal to feel trapped. And stay in groups if applicable. Wolves will most likely flee in the presence of humans, but staying with your group is a great precaution in wildlife country. All right, some other tips with an aggressive wolf. So I want to reiterate that it is highly unlikely that you will encounter an aggressive wolf. It is why it's so important that we ensure wolves retain their fear of people so they do not become habituated to where a negative encounter could occur. First, what are examples of potentially aggressive behaviors you have noticed or experienced either with your pets or with wildlife? Does it look something like that? Yeah, we do notice that a lot when our pets or other animals and wildlife get nervous or aggressive. So if you have seen or experienced how a pet dog behaves when they're scared, defensive, or even aggressive, then you have a good idea of how a wolf might also respond. On the rare chance that you meet an aggressive wolf, advice from Alaska is, if an aggressive wolf approaches you, do these steps. So never turn your back or run, aggressively lunge towards the wolf while yelling and clapping your hands, or retreat slowly while facing the wolf and acting aggressively. Stare directly at the wolf and don't turn your back to it. If you are with a companion and more than one wolf is present, place yourselves back to back and retreat slowly while acting aggressively. Use air horns or other noisemakers, or use bear spray. Climb a tree. Wolves cannot climb trees. And then the last one is to stand your ground if a wolf attacks you and fight back with any means possible. Use sticks, rocks, skeebles, fishing rods, or whatever you can find. And a lot of those are similar to if you encounter other wildlife like bears and mountain lions. So learning an animal's body language can help you understand more about the animal's response and how to appropriately react. So now we're going to watch a video that's what to do if you encounter a wolf. It's from Oregon Fish and Wildlife. If our sound is working, we'll see. No.
I had an exciting encounter with a wolf. I was alone surveying an area for signs of wolf activity when I saw a wolf walk out of the forest. As the wolf moved in my direction, it was clear that it didn't know that I was there. As it got closer, I said something quietly to alert the wolf. As soon as I did, the wolf stopped in its tracks, trying to figure out what made the noise. It turned and ran as soon as it realized I was there. Running away is a wolf's typical reaction to encountering a human. There are a few other behaviors I could have seen during this encounter. Sometimes wolves will bark howl when they feel nervous or threatened. They might also follow a person at a distance until they are out of the area that the wolves feel protective of, like a den or feeding site. These bolder behaviors become more likely if there is a dog present, since wolves see dogs as intruders in their territory. I can understand how someone might have felt threatened by this wolf. It's hard to imagine that a wolf could be so close without noticing me, since they have excellent senses of smell and sight. But the breeze was blowing toward me, carrying my scent away from the wolf. I was standing still with trees behind me and a small tree in front of me, and I was wearing green and brown clothing, so it makes sense that the wolf didn't notice me at first. If you encounter a wolf and it doesn't run away at first, it may be because the wolf doesn't know that you're there. A shout and an arm wave can let the wolf know. Be ready to encounter all kinds of wildlife on Oregon's wild lands.
Okay, let's review what we have learned. Let's make sure we review the most important points to remember and see if you all were paying attention. All right. How can you tell the difference between a wolf track and a domestic dog track? Wolf tracks will tend to be larger, but the real key is that they often walk in a straight line and will not wander or veer off in various directions like a pet dog. Remember to look for other clues that will help you determine what animal is in the area. All right, which picture is the wolf? All right, so the photo on the right is the wolf. So this is a yearling gray wolf. And although the color pattern is similar to a coyote, when you look closely, it has the broad muzzle and long legs of a wolf. So sometimes you don't get to see all of the identifying characteristics such as ears, muzzle, legs, and feet. But when you compare what you can see, large ears, short thin legs, and small feet, you can identify the left photo as a coyote. It can be very difficult to identify wildlife at times, so looking for other evidence and clues and considering other factors such as your location, the season, can help you be more sure of what you're seeing. You can improve your identification skills and test yourself with more pictures via Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. All right, what time of the year or times of the year should you be more cautious when living and recreating in wolf country? So it is mating season, which peaks in mid-February and late April to September when they are birthing and rearing pups. At these times, wildlife can be more protective and aggressive, so it's good to take extra precautions in wildlife country at these times. All right. Name 3 things you and your community can do to prevent potential problems with wolves and other wildlife. Remove food attractants like bird feeders and pet food. This will help prevent problems with bears and lions too. Remember, we don't want to attract prey animals that could then attract their predators. The next one is securing trash or any food stored outside in animal-proof containers or enclosures. Consider removing water features like outdoor ponds or fountains. Make sure bushes and hedges are trimmed to prevent hiding places for any wildlife, and keep hazing materials handy like noisemakers, water hoses, etc.
What can you do to protect your pets from wolves? Indoor shelter options for animals during hours of darkness, enclosed dog houses, sheds or barns, and be sure to feed your pets inside. Chain link fences or electric fences around dog yards, lights around dog yards, clearing brush and vegetation around dog yards, keeping your pet leashed or in visual or auditory range, and owners should vocalize frequently, including the use of whistles. Never let your dog play with a wolf, as we said earlier. What are other tips to prevent problems with wolves and other wildlife? Just like any other critter here in the county, be aware of your surroundings, keep their diets wild. Feeding wolves and other wildlife might cause them to lose their fear of people and become potentially dangerous. Keep a safe distance from wolves, at least 300 feet or more. Leave room for a wolf to escape, and stay in groups if you can. Wolves will most likely flee in the presence of humans, but staying with the group is a great precaution in wolf country. Colorado's wildlife need you, and we must manage together. One of the most difficult jobs we have as wildlife officers is having to put down an animal that has become habituated due to preventable human actions. While we have little control over wildlife's behavior, we do have the power to change and control our own behavior and actions. Wildlife conflicts in an area/neighborhood are a community issue that can only be solved by the community working together to minimize potential problems by living responsibly with wildlife. If you are doing everything you can to prevent potential problems, but your neighbors are feeding or attracting wildlife, you will still most likely continue to have those issues. The safety of the community and the lives of wolves and other wildlife may very well depend upon people making responsible choices and decisions. So we ask you guys to please share what you've learned today with others, as we must work together to help protect people and wildlife. Here's some more resources that we offer as Colorado Parks and Wildlife. We have our wolf resource guide, which I believe we have in the back, along with how to report a wolf sighting in Colorado. And we have a QR code if any of you guys want to scan that. You should pull it up on your phone as well. Now we're going to go into questions. That's a quote there by David Barron. But anyways, I'm going to do wolf questions and move into. So we'll just open it up to questions. If folks have things, we'd be more than happy to answer it.
A mic around.
Wolves that were released here in Colorado all have collar time, so y'all can track them. And have any come to Summit County?
The initial wolves that were released in Colorado do have collars on them. Now, I'd like to reiterate, as soon as wolves start reproducing and whatnot, we're going to have wolves in the state that aren't going to have collars. But for now, yes, the wolves that we introduced as an agency do have collars.
Is there any here in Summit County?
As of right now, there are none in the county.
Is that because they left? Because you left them in there? Did you?
Okay, thanks. Hannah and Alex did a great job giving that presentation, so I really appreciate them. This is the first time that this presentation has been given, and it's been developed to give to many communities just like this. So great job to you two to having gone through that. So appreciate that effort. My name is Eric Odell. I'm the Wolf Conservation Program Manager, and I'm managing the biological and technical side of all of the reintroduction that we've done. And so the question was about the wolves in Summit County. We did have 2 releases, or a couple of the animals were released in Summit County, and they moved quite a bit. And you know, the way the animals are moving has been really interesting to us to follow. We really anticipate, we had these conversations with a technical working group at the very beginning as we were putting this plan together as to what to expect. There were several people that were involved with the reintroduction in Yellowstone and central Idaho, and that were involved in our technical working group, and we expected big movements, 60 miles, 100 miles from the release sites. And we have seen some movement away from where they've been released, but not that great of movements. And so we do have collars on all of the wolves. They're not the kind of collars, or they're not the kind of GPS that you've gotten accustomed to with your phone. So we don't know where they are at this point in time. The way those collars work is they collect a point every 4 hours or so if they're in contact with the satellite. And then when they've gotten 4 or so points, they'll then communicate that back to us. So when we get a bundle of GPS points, they're relatively stale. We can say where they were yesterday or the day before, but we can't say where they are right now. We can't say necessarily where they were this morning. And so as and that's intentional. The collars that we have, we could have very, very frequent points, but the cost of that is battery life. And so we need these collars to last a long time so that we can follow these wolves and monitor these wolves. If you did it very regularly, that battery life would last a matter of months or maybe a year, whereas now they're set up to cover a year. So I'm getting to the question about where they moved. So we've developed a map, and I know you can't see this nearly as well as the presentation, but every 4th Wednesday of the month on the CPW website, we're going to produce a map that shows the watersheds where wolves have been for the last 30 days. And so it's a way that we can provide information to people that are interested about where wolves are, and also importantly where they aren't. And right now this map is very accurate, right? We know because of all the wolves that we've reintroduced, they all have collars on them. But as they breed, and if there are more immigrants coming into the state, the number of wolves that have collars is actually probably going to decrease. And so there will be wolves in areas where we don't necessarily know that they are. So right now, that map that comes out, it'll come out this Wednesday actually, will show in a kind of a big polygon where wolves have moved to within the state. And so they were released in Summit County. They've moved quite a bit, but they still move around quite a bit within those areas. And so you'll see a map later this week on where wolves are in Colorado at this point in time.
So will you have a map that shows more detail than just the watershed? Because that's kind of a worthless map, to be honest.
So the question is, will we have a map that's more detailed than the watersheds? We don't anticipate putting something out like that publicly. The wolf locations are very, very sensitive, right? There's people that really want to know where wolves are because they want to go see them. There's people that want to know where the wolves are because they want to do something bad to them. And so it's our responsibility to protect that to the level that we can. That's not at all to say that we're not having those conversations. When there are wolves in areas, and your livestock producers, our district wildlife managers, our biologists are having very specific conversations with individuals to let them know what's going on in the landscapes around them. And so we need to be informative, and we also need to be protective of the animals at the same time.
With all of western Colorado to work with, why did you release 10 within just a few square miles of one area? Why didn't you spread them out?
Good question. So why are the wolves? Why do we choose a very, very focused area to release the 10 wolves that we released? So many of the wolves are not related. We need those wolves to interact with one another. We need them to pair up so that they can develop packs and develop territories. And so if we release one wolf in every, I don't know how you would say it, if we release 5 wolves north of I-70, 5 wolves south of I-70, the likelihood of those wolves coming into contact with each other is very, very low. And so our effort is to establish a self-sustaining population of wolves. And so without that interaction, we would never be successful at it. So, okay, so there's the map. And so we're also, we do have all of Western Colorado. The statute requires us to look at reintroductions just west of the Continental Divide. And we also, because of what I was talking about with what we expected to see these movements, it's expensive for us to go and capture wolves, transport wolves, release wolves, put collars on them. We don't want them to go into neighboring states immediately. And so we voluntarily put a 60-mile buffer from south from Wyoming, east from Utah, north from New Mexico in the tribal lands to try to protect that, to try to protect our investment. And so that's what you see inside that red polygon. And then we've identified the two circles, and those are not, it's not a strict border. Those are just to kind of identify a northern area and a southern area where we did our releases. So this year we did our releases in the northern part of the western part of the state.
Yes. What are your expectations for wolf introduction to environmental or ecosystem concerns?
Yes, what are the expectations for the wolf impacts to ecosystem effects? It's a good question, and something that there's a lot of popular literature that's coming out saying wolves will restore rivers and wolves will have all these tremendous effects. And a lot of that research comes from national parks, which is a very different landscape than the working lands of Western Colorado. There's also some research that's come out of the national parks recently that's really looked in an experimental way, so they're really manipulating the system to look at what is that effect and how does that, is there evidence, is there data to support the statement that there are big effects from having wolves on the landscape. It's inconclusive. I think that a lot of the kinds it's not, well, I guess it's inconclusive to some degree to know if and when that will happen. I think one thing is to say that it's not nearly as simple as some of the popular videos that you see on YouTube are made out to be. Restoring wolves to the state is not necessarily going to bring back butterflies and songbirds in really short order. In some instances, in some local areas, it might have that kind of an impact, but from abroad, all throughout the west of Colorado, I'm not sure that that's a reasonable expectation. Yes?
You said that you were interacting in more short term with livestock producers. I have horses, but I'm not a livestock producer. Is there some way that I can get that information? Because my yard is, if you pick the food that they naturally eat, that is deer, elk, and moose.
Yeah.
20% of the year, they're in my yard right next to my horses.
Yeah, well.
Can I get that information in more real time too?
So we have 10 wolves on the landscape. We have thousands of mountain lions and bears as well. And you all have done a very good job of coexisting with bears and mountain lions as well. 10 wolves is not going to make a huge difference to the way that livestock and hobby farming and horses and all the other kinds of activities that happen should be affected by the state. Right now, the other thing to say about that is that we have 10 animals and they all have collars. That's going to decrease substantially. Our long-term goal is to keep a collar or two within each pack. The pack of wolves does not stay cohesive throughout the year. It's just impractical for us to try to keep a collar on every wolf in perpetuity. That's just not a feasible thing to do because of the capture operations and all of that. And so what you're asking about is the data that we have right now is very fine resolution, very, very complete, a complete representation of where wolves are. But that's not always going to be the case. There's going to be, in the very near future, in a matter of years, there will be many uncollared wolves in the state. And so to set that expectation that we're going to be able to communicate that to every farmer or rancher or horse rider is not a fair assumption to make.
So we're just supposed to live in terror. Worry about our horses, keep them locked up at night, sweep up the food, chase the moose out, because otherwise we're just encouraging wolves.
I'll say that as far as locally here, we have very dedicated staff. So if you want, we have a sign-in sheet and stuff on the back under the comments. If you want to just put like, please contact me, then we'll get that, and we can certainly have, that's a big role that we play on a local level, is because there's a lot of stuff that we can do that's in the Wolf Resource Guide that's tailored towards livestock and protecting your animals, but also at the same time, it's also what will work for you, and some of those suggestions depending on how your operation or how you manage with your horses and how you keep them. If you have a place you can lock them up or put them in a barn at night versus just that they're open. So a lot of that stuff is my staff and myself be more than willing to meet with you and understand kind of your operation and see what we can give you specific suggestions to help reduce any potential conflicts.
Well, I like that, but the specific information that would make sense is telling me that a pack has moved into our area, and then it makes sense for me to lock them up. Locking them up because there's a wolf in Routt County does not make sense.
I think what this comes down to, I mean, you alluded to the map, and that map was published in the Summit Daily, I don't know, weeks ago, a month ago, or something like that, and described about how these are the drainages where wolves are, but a drainage is pretty big.
And they're all of them.
And I can certainly appreciate where you don't want to tell the public exactly where the wolf is, because, as you said, there's a certain number of people who are going to run immediately to that spot, folks have seen one, and there's another group who will run to that very spot to see if they can do it in. Is there any thought in a year when the wolves have moved around, and to be able to give the public a more detailed idea of where the wolves have been roaming in the last year? Because there's enough time lag that nobody's going to be able to run right to that spot and see a wolf or shoot it, whatever the concern is. But that, after the wolves have been here a year, you could put out a fairly detailed map that says, well, we dropped them off here, and they moved all the way around here. But all this data is 6 months old, 8 months.
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion, and something we have considered. And there will be an annual report. And so the phase of wolf restoration that we're in right now is we've got a lot of individual wolves put on the landscape. As those wolves pair up and breed and develop packs and defend territories, we will develop maps that will show what those territories are, where wolves are known to use. And that's going to be a much more, it will be a more refined map, I guess is a way to say it, in terms of the space use of where they are. Much more specific than the watershed map that's being used. Right now, we just don't know. I mean, these are individual animals that are wandering in a way that is very atypical from what we expect to see a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, as the wolf population becomes established. And so we will have an annual report that we'll present to our commission, to the legislature, and to others, to the public as well. And so that map, or that report will have that kind of information as it gets developed. What we have right now is just a bunch of individual animals just kind of checking things out and trying to find out what Colorado looks like.
So your answer about expectations to me was undefined. Why then move wolves in now? What's the rationale for introducing wolves in Colorado?
The rationale, the reason we're reintroducing wolves is because there's state statute that tells us that that's what we should do. When Proposition 114 passed in the November 2020 election, that defined state statute to say that our commission had to develop a plan to restore wolves to establish a self-sustaining population. And so that's the state employees, that's what we're following now. And that's the rationale as to why we're reintroducing wolves.
So what I understand from what you have all taught us tonight is that there are a buku number there are cats out and about, like 100,000 or some number, tell me what that number is.
Less than 100,000.
Okay, 50, whatever the number is, plus bears, who have been here forever, and they are also apex predators. And compared to our 10 little wolves, I would have a tendency to say, not that I'm a biologist, that those cats and those bears and those coyotes as well would be a much more challenge to these folks than our 10 little wolves. Am I underestimating this, or how does that all fit in the scenario?
Well, from a practical perspective, probably. I think that that's a fair way to characterize it. Wolves are different from every other species that I've ever worked with in that they carry with them a history and a folklore that is just very, very different. And so there are emotions that you see in this room that we've seen for the last several years, where people are. I ran out of battery. All right, now it's back. It's back. So wolves, there's a stigma that comes along with wolves, and there's just this uncertainty. Just like the wolves are trying to figure out what Colorado looks like, we're trying to figure out, we as an agency, you all as landowners, what it looks like to live with wolves too. And so there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of learning that we're doing as an agency. There's a lot of learning that you all are doing in terms of what it means to live with wolves. My sense is that there is a lot of concern, right? And that's valid, and that's totally valid, not to diminish that at all. And as we gain more experience in this, as we've learned from other states, we've had conversations with other states from the very beginning of all of this that warned us that this is the way that wolves work. The biology of wolves is relatively simple and straightforward, very similar to a lot of the other species. The social side of wolf management is very different from all the other species that we manage. And so we're learning how to do that and how to work with that.
All right, we just, time-wise, we're going to have a couple more questions, and then I know there's a lot more questions. We also have a lot of staff. So I'll say that we will have an opportunity to answer questions as we talk about outlines.
Okay, my question is, I realize that your parameters of where you release the wolves, your parameters are you have to do it on Colorado state land or private property. And that there hypothetically could be some coordination with you guys and the federal lands people, so that I'm concerned, probably a lot of the state parks are really close to residential neighborhoods and people, that are using. How quickly are you going to try to get together with the feds so as we can use more remote wilderness areas or BLM land that's further away from populated areas to release these wolves? Because right now, it sounds like you can't do that. And the quicker you could coordinate that and get them more remote, it might be a little bit better for people and livestock.
That's a good question, and we heard that, we considered that from the very beginning too. When it comes down to it, the way that these wolves have moved, it doesn't really matter where we open the cages, because they've moved far distances from those areas, from where they were released. We could do it on state and willing private landowners. We're not going to force private landowners to do this unwillingly. So it's only on willing private landowners that would be interested in doing this, and on state lands. To do it on federal lands requires that cooperation and inherently the NEPA analysis and the National Environmental Policy Act analysis, which takes time and money to go through the EIS to do that. And so we could do that. That could be done, but it comes at substantial cost. And it's proven to not necessarily be that necessary, because we've been able to find good spots on state lands where we were able to release wolves and to have minimal impact. The 10 animals that we've released, I can say that they're all still in Colorado, they're all still alive, and in the 2.5 months that they've been on the ground, there have been no reported depredations. And so there has not been this conflict, which is a great sign for us, that we have not seen this. And we know in time that will happen. Wolves are carnivore species. Wherever they share the landscape with livestock, there will be conflict. And we're well prepared for that, both in terms of tools to try to minimize that conflict, and as well as compensation to pay for it when it does happen. And so, right now, where we have released wolves has proven to be very effective, and we'll probably continue to work that way.
All right, I have one really quick curiosity. So I know that you had mentioned that there's no true evidence to a change in the landscape or an ecosystem due to wolves. But I know that a couple of our big game herds, such as elk or moose, suffer from chronic wasting disease. And I was just curious if you know that there's been any evidence tied to that with the introduction of wolves to better support our big game species as well.
Yeah, we get asked that question a lot. Will wolves take the diseased animals and kind of try to help with that prevalence of chronic wasting disease or other disease? I don't know that that's a long shot. I mean, there are areas where there are wolves well established in chronic wasting diseases moving in the Northern Rockies. And what we do say is that wolves will take the vulnerable animals. And so if there are animals that are made vulnerable because they have some kind of disease, something that's affecting the way they move, that's probably likely to make them more susceptible to depredation. Just as a very healthy wolf that's caught in a big snow bank, or sorry, a big elk that's caught in big snow is also vulnerable in that sense. May not have any disease issues at all. And so whether the presence of wolves has any effect on the prevalence of CWD is probably unlikely, but one of the things that we are looking at.
Yeah, real quick. Just curious, based on you guys have seen other states do this and things like that, so I'm guessing you guys have a lot of data to pull from. Is there some long-term projections, 20 years or something like that, about how the wolf reintroduction will affect ungulate populations?
Is there a long-term projection on the impacts of wolves to ungulates? So we don't know. I mean, and it's a very difficult thing to compare because Colorado ungulate populations are much bigger than ungulate populations throughout other states in the West where wolves are present. In all of those other states in the Northern Rockies where there are wolves, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Oregon, Washington, there are also very healthy ungulate populations, still very, very active hunting recreation as well. And so there are likely to be impacts. The wolves will every elk that a wolf eats is part of that equation, but it's unlikely. We don't anticipate it to be nearly to the high level of detriment that we hear in some cases.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so we will be around after for questions as well. We just want to touch on living with lions a little bit since it has been so prevalent in our community. So we're just going to talk about living with mountain lions. So mountain lions are elusive predators and live in a varied habitat around the state. They're likely to be present anywhere deer and elk are abundant, which are their prey base. Such conditions exist in mountain subdivisions, urban fringes, and open spaces. And then during the winter months, deer and elk move into winter range, so we can say that mountain lions also move with them. So here's just a map of our mountain lion range in Colorado. So everything that is yellow is mountain lion range. So that's like over half the state, right? So a lot of us are living in mountain lion community and territories. So here's just a picture of comparing a mountain lion track to a domestic dog track and a coyote track. The prevalent things with a mountain lion track is the M-shaped bottom. It actually just spells out an M for you, like mountain lion. And the toes. So they're gonna have oval-shaped toes, and because they're cats, they can retract their claws. So they're not gonna show their claws most of the time in their prints. So that's what you wanna look for. That picture in the bottom is really helpful and beneficial, and that's just, you can find pictures like that online if you're curious. So mountain lions and humans. So mountain lion and human interactions have increased. So there are more people moving into mountain lion habitat. There are more prey that have become comfortable in urban areas, and there are more people using the hiking, biking, running trails, cross-country skiing, all of that go in and out of mountain lion habitat. And we all have a greater awareness of the presence of mountain lions. So with all of our doorbell cameras, all of our security cameras that catch pictures of them at night and stuff, we're just more aware that they're in our backyard than we have been before. So mountain lion mitigation, so habitat mitigation. So what we can do around our house to help mitigate lions next to our house, we can enclose our decks. So we remove their hiding places, we remove all the places of cover that they want to be. We can use motion sensor lights that go off every time a lion comes. That's more likely to spook them than a consistent light that they will get used to over time. And we don't feed wildlife because it attracts the prey, which attracts the predators, and that's no good. And then for hazing, we can yell, we can bang on pots and pans, we can use our car horns, you can alert that from a distance, very useful. You can also throw objects if they're too close to you, if you're just uncomfortable with it. You can throw objects like sticks, rocks, and snow, and then you can use pepper spray when you're in self-defense against any of these wildlife, really. And then what we say, and this is really good for kids too, if you want to tell them that, is just to be smart. So just stop when you see an animal, any wildlife, you just stop and you make yourself big. For kids, what we tell them is we tell them to pull their jacket up above their heads with their arms, and it makes them look 2 times bigger. And then you want to announce firmly and talk loudly to them, try and spook them off with just yelling at them, being aggressive in your voice, and then retreating by backing away slowly, never turning our back. All of this is pretty similar from what we saw about the wolves. And then for kids, we put that to tell an adult. And things like that will also be important for us to know as wildlife officials and things like that. So then at the bottom, I just said some tips and tricks, like if you're out hiking, to place an object between you and the wildlife that you're seeing. So like a rock, a tree, a bike, anything you can find. And then if you're attacked, fight back and use whatever you can find. So how to report wildlife conflicts, because we talk about reporting all these things. So life-threatening emergency, obviously call 911. If it's a non-life-threatening wildlife conflict, you can call State Patrol Dispatch at that phone number listed up there. You can also find that on Google if you just research Colorado State Patrol. There is an on-call wildlife officer 24/7, so they can connect you to a wildlife officer who can help you with whatever's going on. And then we also have our Hot Sulphur Springs office, and that's the phone number for that. And we will take wildlife sightings, pet livestock attacks, and hunting issues, or you can come in and visit us at that office as well. CPW does not monitor social media accounts, but thank you guys for the community alerts and letting us know what's going on. And then here is our local Summit County officers' contact information. So you guys are welcome to take that down. That's our work email and work phone. And now we'll go into something else.
Thank you for coming out, and appreciate everyone, and thanks.